I'm going to hand sanitize, and then I'm going to open my cupboard. So now that I'm all ready to go, I've fully donned all my PPE, I'm going to clean my operatory. So my room is already turned on and my switches are turned on to the office. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to purge my lines for the day. So I'm going to open my cabinet here. I'm going to grab out my purge bucket. So I have 2 buckets available. I have one for the beginning and the end of the day, and I have one for in between patients. It's the beginning of the day for us, so I'm going to use my blue one. Now it doesn't matter if it's the beginning of the day or if it's in between patients, I'm always going to use the same amount of solution. So I'm going to put 1 pump of solution in my bucket, and then I am going to fill my bucket with water. know that my second wipe is complete, I'm going to start by disinfecting my utility gloves. So I'm going to grab my paper towel with my disinfectant. So I'm now done with all my PPE except for my gloves. So with my bare, clean hands, I'm going to finish setting up my room. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place my barriers on my room. So I'm going to open my cupboard up again, and my barriers are just right here. So I'm going to place my barriers on my high touch areas. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold my corners in on my barrier so that it's easier for me to remove later on. So I'm going to place a barrier here, and what you want to think about when you're placing the barriers is where will I need to touch when I'm working with a patient. Oh, I need to cover my control panel. And now I need to put my chair barrier on, which is in my side on the bottom. So now that I have all the barriers on my room, there's 6 of them, plus the chair. I'm going to say to my instructor, "Hey Cynthia, I'm ready for my tray. Can I have a tray?" And Cynthia is going to hand me a tray. Thank you. I'm going to take my tray and I'm going to set it up. So the outside of my tray is considered my clean, but it's dirty. Cynthia touched it, I'm touching it with my bare hands. So we're allowed to touch the outside with our bare hands. I'm going to take my tray cover off and I'm going to go in my drawers to find my tray cover. So I'm going to, by the corner, pick up my tray cover. I need 2 of them. I'm going to place 1 on my tray and 1 on my back counter. Then I'm going to go into my top drawer here and I'm going to take out my patient glasses and my bib clip, as well as my bib. And I'm going to place them on my back counter. Now I'm going to take my cotton pliers, and with my cotton pliers, I'm going to take out my stuff that is going to go into my patient's mouth. So I want 1 cotton roll. I want 1 2x2 gauze. I want 1 saliva ejector and 1 high volume suction. Now I'm going to close my drawer and place my cotton pliers back in the top drawer where I found them. I'm going to place my lid back on top to protect until my patient is seated. I'm going to take my tray and I'm going to place it on my operatory side on the tray. And now I'm going to hand sanitize. Now I'm going to call my instructor over and I'm going to say, "I'm ready for my patient." So before I do that, I'm gonna get my chair actually ready for my patient. So I'm gonna put my chair down so my patient can climb into it. And then I'm gonna move this stuff out of the way for the patient. So I'm gonna move my light over to the other side. I'm gonna move my delivery system out of the way, and I am going to open the arm of my chair. So now when my patient comes in, they can walk right in and sit down in the chair. So now at this point, I'm gonna say to my instructor, I'm ready for my patient. And my instructor is going to come over. I'm going to say, I am going to completely doff all my PPE. I am going to go get my patient, and I'm going to bring my patient back and seat them in the chair. Good morning, Mr. Smith. My name is Natasha. I'll be your RDA today. Today, we are going to be doing an intraoral exam. And are there any updates or changes to your dental or medical health? No? Okay, that's good. I'm just gonna get your room ready to go, so I'll just have you hang out for a few minutes. Now I'm gonna say to my instructor, I am going to completely don all of my PPE except for gloves. With my clean hands, I'm going to take my instruments out. My instruments are in this cupboard here, and you'll see they're labeled Basic Kit. That's the one that I'm going to use. So I'm going to remove that out with my clean hands, and I'm going to place it on the back counter. Now I need to open my tray. Once again with my clean hands in front of my patient so they can see everything's nice and clean. Move it to the back counter. And grab my instruments. So my instruments are the same as the outside of the tray. They're clean, but they're like a dirty clean. Whereas the inside, the actual instruments, those are sterilized. So this part is all stuff that's gonna go in the patient's mouth. I don't wanna let this package touch that part. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open it very carefully from the top, peeling it back, careful not to touch the instruments with my hands or with the outside of the package. Once it's pulled back, I'm going to dump it onto the tray, careful not to let the package touch the tray. Now I'm going to take this and put it on my back counter. I'm going to need this again later to do my charting. So I'm going to place it back here so I have it. I'm going to hand sanitize, and then I am going to place some gloves on. So once again, I'm opening my cupboard with my paper towel. I'm holding my gloves and I'm removing them one at a time and closing my cupboard back up. And now I'm going to place my gloves on. Careful to bring my gloves over top of my gown. Now I'm going to give Mr. Smith his glasses and put his bib on. So here's your glasses. Thank you. You can go ahead and put those on. And here is my bib. So my bib has two sides. It has a shiny side and a dull side. You want to make sure that the dull side is out so it can absorb the water, and the shiny side can protect the patient's clothing. I'm going to clip on one side of my bib clip, and I'm going to place it over Mr. Smith, clipping it on the other side. If my gloves come in contact with Mr. Smith at all, his hair, his shirt, his body. I'm going to change my gloves because they're now soiled, and I'm going to use them to go intraorally into his mouth, and I don't want to use soiled gloves to do that. But as long as my gloves didn't touch him at all, I can leave them on. So now I'm going to finish setting up the room over here. I'm going to arrange my tray. So on my high volume evacuator, there is a valve up at the top here. You want to make sure that that's at the top and that you haven't inserted it the other way. So it actually goes this way and it's beveled. So now I'm ready to do my procedure. So I'm going to say, okay, my procedure is done. So I'm going to say to my instructor, my procedure's done, I'm ready to dismiss my patient. My instructor is going to say, okay. So first thing I'm going to do is with gloves, I'm going to remove the bib and the bib clip. I can use the same gloves as long as my gloves aren't visibly soiled. If they're visibly soiled, before you touch the patient, obviously you want to put new gloves on. I'm going to place this back on my back counter. I'm going to take the glasses from the patient. Thank you, Mr. Smith. And I'm going to place them there. Then I'm going to say to my instructor, now I'm going to fully doff all my PPE. I'm going to do my charting, and I'm going to use my numbers from my package to do my charting. Once that's completed, I'm going to dismiss my patient and walk him out. Once I come back from walking him out, I am going to re-don with everything, including my utility gloves. So the first thing I'm going to do, once I have my utility gloves on, is I'm going to throw out anything that is disposable. So my saliva ejector and my HVE are disposable. The only thing you want to be careful of is this tip right here. When you pull this, sometimes this whole tip can come off. This part we don't want to throw away. So just make sure that that's securely on there. That's okay if it falls on the ground. Not a big deal because we're going to clean it anyways. Then I'm going to go to this side and I'm going to remove my disposables from my tray, leaving my instrument. To remove my air water syringe, I have to press on this part here and pull it out. I'm going to grab my lid for my tray. And now I'm going to walk this over to my sterilization area. This is the only time you're allowed to leave your operatory when you are in full PPE. I'm going to set it down there and I'm going to leave it. I'm going to head back to my room and I'm going to start my cleanup. So the next thing to do for cleanup is to remove all your barriers. You can first start with your chair barrier, and then, like Cynthia says, you can use this as your garbage bag. Because I folded those corners over, it's really easy to remove my barriers. It gives me something to grab onto it to pull it apart. Okay, all my barriers are cleaned up and my garbage is ready to go. I also can throw out my package because my charting where I recorded my numbers is already done. Then the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my buckets out and I'm gonna purge my lines, and then I'm going to double wipe my operatory. Done double wiping my room and everything's nice and clean. I've doffed and I've cleaned my PPE. I'm ready to close up my operatory for the day. So to do that, I have my clean hands. I'm going to move my chair up. So I'm going to use my buttons to move my chair up off the ground. We don't want it all the way up, but just slightly higher so it's easier for cleaning. Now I'm going to close my sides in. I'm gonna bring my operatory side in. I can use these buttons here to drop it up or down to position it into position. So the position I would like is actually over top of the chair. And I'm just gonna hook the cords also on top so that they're not dragging on the ground or in the way. Then I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. I'm gonna take my hoses and I'm going to put them onto the chair. I'm gonna put my light nicely and tuck it in to my chair. And then I'm gonna take my side table and I'm gonna move it back in to my operatory. Careful not to block your button to turn your operatory off. So now we can actually turn the operatory off with our hands. Don't use your feet. Things get broken then. I'm going to turn off my master switch on the other side of my operatory. And then I am going to put my foot pedal and rheostat up on top so that when we're sweeping and mopping, they aren't in the way. Now I'm going to hand sanitize, and now my chair is all tucked in. I'm going to place my garbage can away for the day. So in this cupboard here, where we took it out of, I'm gonna put it back. Note how I'm using the paper towel to carry my garbage can so I don't have to touch it. And there we go, all closed up for the day.